My conversation today is with Shaka Mitchell. Shaka is a fascinating individual. He and I get to talk about this wonderful project that he's involved in called the Come Together Project. It is also a podcast, but the premise is how to use music to create deeper, more meaningful conversation. There's so much more to it. And I'm really looking forward to you getting to hear him and our conversation. So let's dive in. Well, hello, and welcome to Story Sessions, where your story matters. I'm your host, Laura Lynn Donahue, and each week we gather for meaningful conversations rooted in lived experience. Let's dive in. Shaka, welcome. I am so glad you're here today on Story Sessions. And I would love for you to introduce yourself just with regard to the Come Together podcast and the music endeavor that you're doing. And then we'll go do a little background talk and kind of go from there.
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me, Laura Lynn. I'm glad to have this conversation with you and talk a little bit and share some stories. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm Shaka Mitchell, and I'm the founder of the Come Together Music Project, and we're a nonprofit based in Nashville, Music City. So, there's a music tie there, but our aim is really to show people how music can be used to deepen existing relationships, create new ones, and build bridges. And music is such a remarkable tool for getting to know people. And I think something that you will appreciate is that music allows us to tell stories about experiences that we've had, or even people that have entered at our lives at some point. And oftentimes, the music helps us recall those memories. And so I love using that as a vehicle into getting to know people a little better. So it can be an icebreaker, but you can also get really deep when you use music.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that. And it's appropriate that you are here in Music City. Is this where you were raised, or where were you raised if not here?
It's not, but we've been here in Nashville now since 2008. So
Okay.
however many years that makes it.
18.
18 or so. It'll be 18
Yeah.
years. I also went to college here in Nashville. I went to Belmont University.
Oh, okay. I went
Yeah.
down the boulevard to Lipscomb.
But yeah. Okay. Battle of the Boulevard down there.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
And so, but no, it's not where I grew up, though.
Mhm.
It at this point is where I guess I've spent a majority of my life. But I grew up. I split my time a little bit between New York and Georgia.
Oh, that's quite a diverse locations.
Yes, very different. Very
Yeah.
different. There's probably a story in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would bet there is. So let's go. Where were you born, in Georgia, or where did you live most of your childhood, rather?
Most of my childhood, I lived in New York. I lived on Long Island, and my parents were from New York. I was born on Long Island, and we didn't move until I was in high school.
Okay. All right. Okay, great. So growing up in your home, do you have siblings?
I do. I've got one sister and two brothers.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
all younger,
Oh, yeah.
much
Oh,
to their
nice.
chagrin. Yeah.
Yes. So you and I both hold the oldest role, two younger brothers. So, yeah. So in your home, what was the emotional temperature of the house? For example, in my home growing up, I mean, looking back now, I know this, there was a lot of like pushing it under the rug kind of. There was lots of love, but there was also lots of pushing it under the rug or not talking about it. And what type of environment did you grow up in as far as communication, emotional goes?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're jumping right in. So I grew up is that home. When I think about my parents and my siblings, we were a blended family.
Mhm.
And so my mom had been married to my biological father. And then my stepfather had also been previously married. they had a daughter, and so we sort of came together in kind of Brady Bunch style. And next thing you know is my sister and and I say she's younger, but really we're the same age. She's only a few months younger than I. So we were in the same grade and really peers. Um, and then had two younger brothers after that. So yeah, it was a blended family, and I think that probably informs a lot of the experience, right? Because you've got family members from sort of multiple tribes and you're trying to piece it together. And there's probably some elements of awkwardness all the time that, that kids feel, that adults feel in different ways. Um, yeah, I think that it was also an age, and you asked a question about kind of what was sort of the emotional temperature.
Hmm.
Both so when I think about my parents, when I speak about them, I'm really talking about my mom and my stepfather. Um, they are both very calm people.
Hmm.
And so you didn't have a whole lot of big emotions in our house growing up. And yeah, that was just not the dynamic that we usually had. They were also, hard workers and worked a lot, and so unfortunately, that meant that they were often working at times that were opposite one another.
Hmm.
So um, we didn't spend a majority of our time with the entire family unit together, say around the dinner table, because somebody was at work and somebody was, always coming and going. And so, that's very different from how, say, my life is now and how we raise our own kids.
Yeah. So were you, did you spend much time, even if you weren't together as a family, in conversation? Um, where I'm kind of going with this is with the Come Together project. I want to know if any of that stemmed from your childhood, from your beginnings, from, a need for more communication.
Yeah, it's a no, it's a fine question. I don't know that it stemmed from that I would make a direct link to the need for more conversation. Then I think probably I did. And listen, I'm Gen X, and so I think a lot of us in Gen X would say, looking back, that yeah, we probably could have used more uh, uh, a more robust emotional toolbox. Right. I mean,
Agreed.
my sister and I mean, we were latchkey kids. So
Mhm.
we came home from school, we let ourselves in, we were making our after school snacks and getting ready for dinner and whatnot. And then at some point, my mom came home. So that was the experience. And I know for a lot of folks in kind of our generation, that was, not uncommon.
Yeah, yeah.
And whereas now you think about like helicopter parents and
Mhm.
folks who are always there or want to always be there and engaged. And it's just it's a different scenario. So I don't know that at the time I would have said that anything was lacking. Though in hindsight, yeah, probably more communication I think is generally better. Yeah.
Yeah. It is often that we don't know until we look back, just, what we've been through and take those experiences. And in your experiences, so tell me about what role music played in your household.
There was a lot of music in our household, though not because we were musicians.
Hmm.
But I remember, um, I mean, I don't really ever remember not having, say, a record player. And, I had my own record player, and then we had kind of the house one that I probably wasn't supposed to touch. Um, because, back then, like a nice stereo system was was like, I don't know, might have been in one of the nicest things in your house, And so, we had a nice sound system. My dad was into music, and so he was kind of an early adopter of CDs. It's just so funny to think about now. My kids wouldn't even know where to put a compact disc.
In the microwave
In the yeah, that's right.
or the toaster.
Yeah, or they use them for a coaster or a frisbee
Mm.
or something.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so we had music, and I would say a fairly diverse set of music if you're thinking about genres. So
Mhm. Mhm.
we would be listening from everything from like Motown kind of soul music to my mom had been trained uh, to play classical piano. So there were times when we might be listening to like Vivaldi. And then my mother's also Puerto Rican. And so I can remember times like when I was with my grandmother when we might be listening to, Latin music. And so, yeah, there was always a lot of music around, not to mention growing up in New York in the 80s and 90s, that is the birthplace of hip hop.
Yeah.
So just a ton of music and was around. And so I definitely gained an appreciation. Though I will tell you, one of the first cassette tapes that I remember owning was Beach Boys. Because I really dug the harmonies and I just really like, She's Real Fine, My 409 is a song that comes to mind. And so it's also in uh, evidence, I think, that music is not limited to one type of person and
Mhm.
vice versa, right? Like
Sure.
it kind of um, speaks across uh, socioeconomic, demographics.
Every story moves through stages, and Story Sessions is built to meet you at each one. Start with a focused discovery session to uncover your story's arc, and then move into a guided series that sharpens your voice, your positioning, and your path forward. And when you're ready, step into launch with expert coaching to help your story land with clarity and impact. And sometimes, when a story truly stands out, we don't just help guide it, we publish it. Find out where your story starts at storysessions.live.
I just kind of want to pull this thread a little bit. I want to know if there was a song or more than one that sort of pulled down inside of you as you were growing that gave you that feeling of the throwback of the, oh, yeah, that song is meaningful because, and it puts me in this place
Hmm.
and why.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I think this is the thing about music that really every memory has its own soundtrack. And so I can think of different moments and link them to songs, but I'll give you maybe um, two examples that come to mind. One is that I attended a Catholic school there in New York, kindergarten through eighth grade, and many of our faculty members were um, clergy. We had priests, we had nuns, um, and I remember that one of the nuns when I was in middle school, I mean, really, really loved um, the the Dionne Warwick song. That's what friends are for,
Mm,
and we would sing "That's What Friends Are For" at like every assembly. And in middle school, you hate to do things like hold hands with your friends, and definitely not you know, with the other gender. And so I remember having to like stand in circles with the whole sixth grade, and we're holding hands and we're singing. Um, that's what friends are for. So that's one of those songs that if I hear it, instantly takes me back to the specific like church basements where these things were happening and assembly
mm,
rooms. Yeah.
yeah. I'm kind of reflecting back myself to those assembly rooms. I didn't go to a Catholic school, but I went to um, a church affiliated school. Actually, I went to Lipscomb.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
started there in first grade and
Yeah.
just almost went all the way through, but not quite.
Yeah. Well, another song that I think about is that reminds me of my abuela, my
Mm.
grandmother on my mom's side, because she was a huge Lionel Richie fan. Um,
Oh, yeah.
and so she was a big Lionel Richie fan, and also this group called DeBarge. And And I remember listening in her house, listening to DeBarge. Yeah, that's really the one that sort of takes me back to her house. And I spent a lot of time with her when I was growing up. Um, and yeah, I can just kind of hear the soundtrack a little bit, and dancing with my grandmother. Yeah.
So what does that bring up for you emotionally?
Yeah, I think good memories. Yeah, generally good memories, and also it makes me think like, boy. So at that time in particular, a lot of that time was before my mom remarried, and so before our family sort of got much larger, and so there was a stint there when it was just my mom and I, and so I think about, boy, like how did she even make that work? It makes me really thankful that I'm not doing, I've got kids of my own. And I think I am so fortunate that I'm not doing this by myself. And, my mom had a network, but it wasn't extensive. Um, yeah. So I really look back at that time with a lot of gratitude just for the whole situation. Yeah, it definitely, definitely happy times. And I think, at that point, and this is one of the beautiful things about kids, you don't really know that later on you might think it was a goofy thing that you were dancing in the living room with your grandmother.
Mm.
It's like, yeah, that's what we were doing, and it was great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the fondness of that
Yeah,
memory that
yeah,
comes, not the embarrassment quote of
that's
the moment.
that's exactly
But
right.
it's you've created a memory that exists now in time and space with you wherever you go. And you've got that soundtrack, which I love, how you have, propped that up with this, the soundtrack of your life, so to speak. Do you, as we talk, a little bit more about the emotional aspect of story and music, are you someone that lets yourself be fully known in conversation with, and I'm going to say vulnerability, in a sense, but also, in a way that's less, maybe, professional or corporate, or where where do you let yourself go as far as, deep conversation goes?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's such an interesting thing now. We used to not use the word authenticity, right,
Mm,
a lot.
mm,
And now that word gets used certainly increasingly more than it used to. I don't know, maybe it's out of fashion a little bit, but I that's kind of what your question calls to mind: authenticity, maybe a little vulnerability. Um, I think there are. Well, let me say this: I am so I'm a lawyer by training, and I think lawyers tend to be risk averse and very careful with language. So
yep, yep, yep.
you get those two big caveats, right? And I think I'm probably less risk averse than most folks in this profession. And I think I'm also, uh, but well, but I think I am still pretty careful with my words.
Mm, mhm,
In part because I've like stepped in it enough times in my life to go like, oh, maybe I should be more careful with my words and be more thoughtful, before I hurt someone's feelings. I mean, I can think about very specific times in my life when I've just, hurt someone's feeling because I was not careful. So but when I think about, I feel particularly able to be really open, and I think the setting matters. So two settings that come to mind. I mean, we are members of a local church, and those are folks that, I mean, I think those are really the ones that uh, we would say we're in covenant with, and what that means is we have sort of looked each other in the eyes and said, "Hey, I invite you to be in my life and ask tough questions or say hard things or say encouraging things and vice versa, right? And we sort of agreed that that's who we're going to be in one another's lives because we have a belief in something that's greater than ourselves. So that's a place where I think it's really important.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with the book Radical Candor by Kim Scott, she talks about radical candor is when you really care about someone and you're basically willing to sort of tell them what's true, even if it's hard. And
Yeah.
to me, there's no better place than that. Like that is what the church should be for.
Mm.
When you really care about someone, and by the way, you care so much that you're willing to say something that may be unpopular, but
Mm.
you're doing it from a place of love, not from a place of just wanting to be a jerk and show that you're right.
Mm.
But
Mm.
so for me, that place is the church. The second, is something that I had the great fortune of being a part of in recent years, and I think maybe in 2021, I was invited to join the Civil Society Fellowship, which is part of it's a project of the Aspen Institute. And it's a group of folks, in our case, it was 16 people from around the country in wildly different industries, wildly different backgrounds. And we spent over the course of 3 years, weeks together. So we would go, we went to Montgomery and Selma, Alabama, and spent a week together, away from
Mm.
our families. And you really, when you spend that kind of time with people, you get to know them, you get to disagree with them and
Mm.
figure out, all right, you and I do not agree on this issue. And yet we're going to still be in community with
Mm.
one another. And I think that really opens up the possibility for what you can build together. But that's a group that I've been really fortunate to be a part of in recent years, and that fellowship time is done. But I was texting with one of the guys this morning, in fact,
Mm.
because those relationships remain.
Sure. Sure. Well, you talked about covenant, just the idea of being a safe place for someone to talk to, um, and being also receptive to what they have to say without judgment. And that provides a safe environment. And, we were talking about being a lawyer. My father was an attorney as well. And he was very careful with his words. Now, he never had trouble saying "I love you" or giving hugs. More measured, but in his aging process, he's 82 now. That has changed in a way that has been for me really beautiful because he has opened himself up to the conversation and participated in the conversation with examples of life and just providing direction. Maybe well, with age comes wisdom, hopefully. So, or it should. Um, but in relation to that, with the come together, do you call it a project or the podcast or
Well, so
both?
yeah,
Okay.
it's both, which is probably confusing, and I should probably pick. It's the official organization is the Come Together Music Project,
Okay.
but it is also a podcast. It's just we do live events now, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I've listened to parts of some of your episodes, and I would love for you to tell our listeners and our viewers what it is. What's the point, and what do you do on your podcast? Let's just start there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for listening to some, and I really appreciate that. And
Yeah.
yeah, so the point is really to again show that music can be this tool by which we can like deepen our connection and even um, build connection, create connection, even with perfect strangers. So sometimes I've had people on who do not know one another. When they enter this, and by the time we're done, they are often exchanging cell phone numbers and saying, "Hey, let's keep in touch," and that's a beautiful thing. Um, Part of why I wanted to do it is because, I mean, as you know, the past 10 years, we've just seen this increase in polarization in our country, a decrease in civil discourse. And while I'm really thankful for groups that try to get together and say have town hall meetings about some contentious issue, I think that stuff is great and we need more of it. But sometimes the only folks who want to come to an event like that are the ones who are already bought into the concept.
Mhm.
And I started thinking, well, how do we just get people back to the table in general? Um, I mean, there was a stat from a few years ago where something like close to 40% of Gen Z avoids going home for holidays because they fear the conversations that they are going to have, like around the Thanksgiving dinner table. I think
Sure.
that's crazy,
Yeah.
So what can we do to get people together? And I think music can be a really constructive tool in that. So the way that it works is that I typically have two guests, and um, I send them a series of increasingly vulnerable questions ahead of
Mhm.
time, and they fill out a survey and they respond to each one of those questions or prompts with a song selection. Right. So Laura Lynn, if you come on, I'd love to have you on someday. Um,
Yeah.
I
Thank you.
might say, Laura Lynn, what's a song that reminds you of being in high school? And I might even be more specific. Say, what's a song that takes you back to when you first learned how to drive, right?
Mm.
And these are questions that are hopefully um, pretty universal, right? Um, and and that with a little bit of work you can come up with something. And so we might start with a song about, a song from when you were 16, and then we might move to, okay, now tell me a song about that you associate with one of your parents, right? And then we get to tell stories. And so I ask the question, we listen to a little bit of the music,
Uh-huh.
which depend upon what platform you listen to. Sometimes you get to hear it, sometimes you don't. It's all about music licensing issues.
Sure. Sure.
And then we do kind of what you and I are doing right now. We get to hear, okay, why did you pick um, Little Red Corvette by Prince for a song that reminds you of your mom? Well, there's going to be a story in there. And so we get to
Right.
learn about that. And then I close by asking my guests um, to reflect on something that they heard from the other person that surprised them. And again, it's just sort of a way to model what conversation can look like, even with people you may not know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what song comes to mind to you or for you when you first learned to drive?
Good question. I keep behind me, you see this bookcase behind me.
Yeah.
I keep a whole book of lists of songs because I'm actually I tend to be so bad at this on the spot. But yeah, a song from when I first learned to drive, one that comes to mind. Um, Soon after I learned to drive, I would sometimes pick my youngest brother up from daycare
Mhm.
because he's 13 years younger than me. Uh, and I pick him up, and I remember that I had a tape, and we would listen to just probably not good for a 3-year-old, but we would
There's no
listen
judgment
to,
here.
yeah, thank you. But I remember I had a tape by a band called Soundgarden, and we would listen to Soundgarden when I would pick him up. And I put in, it was Soundgarden's Black Hole Sun, I think was that tape. And yeah, that takes me back to when I could first drive. And in fact, I would sometimes drive our middle brother around. He's 7 years younger than me, and I had convinced him, because I knew all the words to the song, I had convinced him that I was playing the tape of I and My Friends, that it was our band.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was just like, you just trust your big brothers, right?
Sure.
You
Sure.
trust your
Why not?
siblings. And so he was just like, "Oh, that's cool. I can't believe you're on the radio." It's like, "Yeah, we're a big deal." Yeah.
Yeah. So how much do you think, with the song the lyrics and the music, what is the driving force? Driving force, no pun intended. Because you
Yeah,
got to have a little bit of both,
I
right?
agree. I agree.
Yeah.
And I think for each person it's different. I read a book recently by a guy named Questlove. He's the drummer for the Roots band, and which is the band that now plays on the Jimmy Fallon show.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a really big, I mean, to say a music aficionado really doesn't do it justice, because he's just a real student of both music performance, but also just music writ large. And he, in his book, was talking about how, um, as between him and the lead kind of vocalist rapper in the band, whose name is Black Thought, Questlove is, he hears the sounds and he's drawn to the music. And then he was saying, but Black Thought is drawn to the lyrics, and they end up kind of bringing those two elements when they're doing their own musical, creation and collaboration. So I think it sort of depends, right? I mean, I think there are, there are songs where the in the opening measure, you know what it is because of the sound. And then there's also songs where I think the words really matter a whole lot. Yeah, I think it just kind of depends.
Yeah. Well, in my opinion, lyrics could be more prolific these days. I think there's so much to say that can be said through song that provides connection. And um, you and I grew up with a lot of great lyricists.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, those feelings that are evoked by the lyrics, whether you get them right or not. We always have one that we've messed up a little bit, and it was,
Yeah. There's
it
a
was,
bathroom on the right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I was just thinking with communication, you ha- and I'm tying that to song only because of our obvious conversation. Um, that draw of lyric and music, but then also if you look at it from a conversational perspective, um, you've got your own vibe, your own, persona, your own energy as you walk into a room. And then how you communicate to me or how I communicate to you with your words either matches that energy or doesn't match that energy for some reason. And I would think maybe sometimes when the two don't match, then you lose the authenticity.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think I don't know, but would you say that rings true with Come Together? It helps.
Mm-hmm. I think that there's definitely an element of subjectivity when someone selects a song, and the the element of subjectivity is such that it's really tough to say that this thing or that thing doesn't ring true as it relates to that specific person,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Because it's their story. I mean, I did one of these recently, and just I guess now maybe it's a month ago, and I won't reveal who it was, who said this. It was a live event, but it was, off the record. We didn't record it. Um, I asked, what's a song that you would listen to or play if you were going into literal or figurative battle?
Hmm.
Okay. Well, the reality is very few of us are ever going to go into literal battle. So that so now already we're in this subjective space, right? Battle for one person might mean getting ready to go into a chemo treatment. That might be battle. Battle for another person might be going home, to have a hard conversation with a spouse or with a family member, right? I mean, battle can be so many different things if you take it figuratively.
Yeah.
Right. And we heard a range of music. So there was a real one theme that emerged was that several people picked like gospel songs, actually. People that I did not expect. So like people who I would have said were irreligious but picked this song. And so now also we have something new to talk about too, right? Because I just learned something.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one of the participants who is a very very like optimistic, positive middle-aged white man, Jewish, picked a song by Jay-Z, and when it played, stood up and like rapped every lyric. And if I would have read that in a book, it actually probably would not. I would go like, this is not even believable.
Yeah.
It was 1,000% believable in the moment because he was doing it, and like this was a song he picked, and this was his thing, and he explained why, and and it was fantastic. So again, there's that subjective nature to it. But I will say, and sorry for such a long-winded answer, but I have often struggled with whether or not to have politicians on the podcast because I really want them to give answers. I don't want their staff to come up with an answer, right? And here, where I live in Nashville, whenever there's a mayoral campaign and there's a mayoral debate, at some point, the candidates will get the question, well, what's your favorite country song? And they always give such canned, I think, inauthentic responses. Yeah. And like, I would love for one of them to say, honestly, like, you know what? I don't even listen to country music, but they know that question is coming. So they all it's all of a sudden everybody's favorite country song is by Dolly Parton, right? Because they know that that's going to be a winner. And I just think if that's true, say it. But if it doesn't, yeah, I don't know if Come Together is the right project for you.
By tuning into this podcast, you understand one thing. Everyone has a story to tell, and that includes you. But sometimes we need a little help to bring our story into the world. That's where Story Sessions comes in. We're a collective of published authors, editors, and experienced storytellers who know that great stories aren't manufactured, they're revealed. Through thoughtful listening, guided conversations, and respect for your voice, we help uncover the story that is already inside you. Story Sessions. Your story told the way it was meant to be. Find out more at storysessions.live.
In my opinion, you can't hear someone else if you can't also give to someone else. I believe it has to be, listening is so important to understanding, but the connection happens when it goes both ways.
Yeah, that's well put.
I am quiet by nature, and I don't like to interrupt. I like to make eye contact as best as I can in any situation. But that can sometimes be to my own detriment because I don't say what I wanted to say because I didn't want to interrupt. So I think if you're like me, whoever is listening, speak up, and a lot of times I will just even say, I don't like to interrupt. Then that gives the other person the opportunity to say, oh, well, I don't mind if you interrupt me. Just, raise your hand or, say something.
That's right.
And then, we're opening communication up some more. What would you say in your life up until now, where were you really heard in a situation about something that you cared about that was important to you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think probably the deepest conversation that I have is with my wife,
Hmm.
right? And so we've been married for 19 years. Yeah, I think about some of the conversations there. I mean, I can think about a conversation pretty early on when we were, say, trying unsuccessfully to have children, and to talk about, and that's something that I think, can carry with it lots of shame. A lot of people don't, of course, want to talk about it. And it's a very, very difficult thing, especially if having a children, having a family is a really strong desire. So anyway, so yeah, I remember when that was a desire of ours, and it wasn't something that was happening. Um, I remember having a conversation, probably a series of conversations, but I can sort of play some of them out in my head a little bit, with just talking to her about like how that was landing on me
Hmm.
as well, because dependent upon what the issues are, I think, either prospective mom or dad may be feeling more of the weight of that. But it doesn't mean that the other person isn't feeling it, right? And isn't experiencing something as well, isn't maybe experiencing some kind of loss. It doesn't matter how many times that's happened in your city or in your state or in that during that year. It's the first time that it's happened to your family. And so if that's the case, you don't know how you're going to respond to that. And so to have someone that you can communicate that with. And I remember having some conversations about those and sort of express how we were feeling. And um man, I think we needed that.
Well, communication is important in all relationships, and with your spouse or partner, it's essential
Yeah.
to maintaining and to be able to hear each other, hear your needs and her needs and wants, desires. You're right. Thank you for sharing that with us. I appreciate it. So, with the podcast, the Come Together podcast, you have also created a live event that's coming up. Will this be the first of its kind? The first one you've done?
Yeah, no, so we've created a sort of live format, but no, we've been doing some live events now for a while. The last one that was open to the public was in January, and we actually had the mayor of Nashville, and then had this artist named Devin Gilfillian. He's like Grammy nominated singer songwriter, and they came on and they talked about songs that took them back to middle school, songs about someone or something they lost, and then songs about community. So had a really good time, and that was at a live event. We had an audience that came out, and so we'll be doing another one of those. The guests are going to be Scott Hamilton,
Oh,
Olympian,
yeah. I know
Olympic
Scott.
gold medalist, and then John Oates, formerly of Hall and Oates,
Yep.
but
I
you
know.
know, a
Met him too.
rock and roll Hall of Famer.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so really looking forward. I won't reveal what the categories are yet, but
Okay.
really looking forward to that. Doing it live is really fun. That being said, we just released a new virtual episode, I think earlier this week, which was with two gentlemen. As we're recording now, it's the National Week of Conversation, so it's perfect that we're having uh, this this session.
Yes, yes.
Um, but yeah, so we're doing them live and doing them still virtually, and putting those out. And we put the live ones out online as well, so folks can see, get a taste of that conversation as well. And it's in conjunction with TEDx Nashville. We're doing a whole series of these this year called the mixtape. And
Nice.
so we've got a number of guests sort of lined up for the rest of the year. And Nashville is a great place to do these live because there's so much talent around. And
Mm,
as you know,
yeah.
you've been connected to this world, but lots of great storytellers. And so, you get to spend the night with some folks who are great storytellers, but we also listen to music together. It's really fun.
Oh, that's great. So earlier, Shaka, you talked about being an attorney, and I know that you are also a facilitator. And did you practice law here in Nashville? Just
Yeah, I
yes.
sure did. Yeah.
Okay. And are you currently practicing law, or have you actually sort of moved into this newer idea of come together?
Yeah, great question. So I still maintain my license,
Mm.
mostly because I never want to have to take the bar exam again. It was terrible. So I maintain my license, and but I don't practice anymore. Um, I still do some legal writing, actually, as part of my day job, which is working in education advocacy, actually. And
Okay.
so yeah, so I still maintain a little bit of that.
And there's something that you said that I thought was interesting. And I want to know where this thought came from, if it was in your previous life as an attorney or your current role now. And you said, we don't need another hot take. We need a different playlist.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So um when I practiced here in Nashville, I actually did some criminal defense work. And after that, I got into education work. And so I helped open a number of schools, and I still, my day job is still working in education advocacy. And the link there, I would say that nothing makes you want to pour into education like getting close to the criminal justice system, right? Because when you're close to criminal justice, you think, oh, how much of this could we have fixed on the front end if we sort of went upstream and worked on this and really poured into our kids? Could we get this right? With Come Together. And the way that I think about it is that I spent a long time thinking about how we prepare kids for the world that they're going to enter. How do we make sure they're educated well? How do we make sure they've got the skills? I started thinking a lot more in recent years about not are the kids prepared for the world that they're going to enter, but frankly, is the world going to be a welcoming place for our kids?
Mm, mm,
And maybe part of that is because I'm a parent myself. I think part of it was just seeing all the polarization and the how toxic things had gotten in even in communities and families. And so Come Together was really born out of that. And I think my training as a lawyer um, has been helpful in that, you know, good lawyers have to listen to their clients. Um, Lots of times we think about lawyers as just like going into court and suing somebody, but that's like the tip of the iceberg. The vast majority of what you're doing happens before then, and really understanding your client's needs and understanding the situation. And so I remember even one of my first legal jobs, I'd go with other senior attorneys and I was just writing down affidavits on people's behalf. And so I was really having to get into their voice and listen to the people that would be our clients. And same thing with Come Together. I think it's just listening to people and kind of like you're doing and hearing what they're saying and going, oh, I think that actually might relate back to something else, to another part of your story in this situation. And so in my mind, that's kind of how they're linked.
it's great. It just the way that when we can allow ourselves to be changed and be moved and follow the instinct. It's not always right, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't give it give it a try. But I love what you've done with Come Together, and the encouraging aspect of that is creating communication between human beings that is not divisive, that has a commonality, because we do have more commonalities than we do differences, I think.
I
Um,
think you're absolutely right. And in again in my education work, I see how something that frankly you didn't think would be terribly controversial, you put it online, and it's amazing the things that people will say to you online. I mean, you say to someone that I mean, this is a real story um, from just the past few weeks. I posted something on X, formerly Twitter, about giving kids scholarships. And almost immediately, I mean, the good thing is that I can laugh about it, but almost immediately there's some anonymous person who puts in the comments, um, like, nobody should listen to this idiot. And I was like, okay, good, great, good talk, you know? And
yeah.
I guess now I'm at an age and stage where that doesn't really bother me as much, right? There was definitely a stage in my life when I would have, like, those are fighting words, and we would have, and I would have wanted to go back and forth with this person. But I sort of saw it, and it's just like, all right, whatever. This is not real. And um, I think that when we do come together sessions, especially when we're doing them in person, we are sitting down together. We're actually doing a lot more listening than we are talking, because we're listening to someone else's story or we're listening to the music itself. And I think it just puts us in a very different frame of mind than if you spend, too much time online. And it's those hot takes that are coming so quickly,
Mhm.
faster maybe than our brains can even process. And it's just giving us this barrage of negativity. And so coming together is just an escape from that. And I think that resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we are an instant gratification society. We want a little bit of information as fast as you can give it to us, and we don't want to have a conversation about it, especially if it might be contentious. I love the idea of sitting around, even just have some folks over, sit down, play some music together. What is this song? What emotion does this evoke for you? Where do you go when you hear this song? When you asked me earlier, hypothetically, or just you said, what song made you think of when you started driving when you were 16? And immediately, yacht rock came to mind.
But yeah,
And then
yeah.
Christopher Cross,
Oh,
Sailing.
well, then you've got to come to the next event with John Oates. Are you kidding? Yeah. I mean, Sarah
Yeah,
Smile, and yeah, yeah,
yeah. Um,
yeah.
and I can see myself driving down Granny White Pike in my convertible, but or maybe I mean, yeah, sailing, singing, sailing. Anybody who's listening, it's got a song that evokes something warm and wonderful. Not that I want to be a 16-year-old driver anymore, but to be able to reminisce about it. And music is such a great way to facilitate conversations, because we all relate to it. Um, and yeah, it's good.
It's also I have felt so fortunate, in that I've gotten to meet so many people doing it, and
Yeah.
and now there are songs that when I hear them, I think about those other people, right?
Mm,
And that's actually really
yes.
tough to do as we get older. We tend to kind of have this close set of relationships, and so yeah. Now there's songs that I hear and I go, oh, that one takes me back to this person. And so not only are they introducing me in some cases to new music,
Hmm.
the music has we've used the music to introduce me to new people,
Mm,
and um, and I think that's a fantastic thing.
I certainly agree with you. Um, is there a question that you wish someone would ask you that you haven't been asked before? And if not,
Well,
that's fine.
yeah, I don't. I mean, thinking about the story that you shared about your dad and how he's maybe gotten opened up a bit more over time and in his current stage. Um, I actually think that for many of us, it doesn't feel natural to explain to someone why we love them. And it also doesn't feel natural to say to someone, hey, why do you love me? That being said, I think that uh, I actually think that that type of question could present people with a really nice opportunity to gift the other one, um, yeah, with some great information and some great, I don't know, sort of emotional juice, so to speak. In fact, I did a session, one of these. This was before Come Together, but with the first group of friends that we did this with, who said, "Hey, what's a song that reminds you of a current or former romantic relationship?" And one of the guys picked a song. It was hilarious. He picked a song from high school about a girl that was using him to make another guy jealous, and it's really funny story. Well,
Yeah.
I picked a song that reminds me of my wife, and um, yeah, even as I was telling the guys, I was getting sort of emotional about it, and I thought, you know what, I shouldn't just keep that to myself. And so, in the days after that, at some point, she probably thought it was totally out of the blue, but I was like, hey, can I tell you something? Let me tell you about this song and
Mm,
why I picked it. And that's not something that we get to do with a lot of people. So, I
yeah.
think that would be the kind of question.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you should write that down because I think it is very, very good advice. Very good question to ask. It made me emotional for a moment because immediately I'm starting to think about all of the things I want to tell the people that I love, why I love them.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, isn't that what it's all about anyway? It's about loving and that's what we want. That's what we need. That's what creates the community. Love for music and love for but the love, the come together type of love is essential. And you've just been a wonderful, wonderful guest. There's so much more that we could talk about, so we'll have to do another episode because I have
Yeah.
other
And
questions. But
well, and you'll have to come on. We'll have to get you
okay,
on Come Together and, bring a friend.
yeah, I'd love that. I'd love that. Now, will you give us some information about your social handles, where we can find you, website, anything? Like, I'll also have it in the show notes, but if you want to just uh, spill it out for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Folks can find our website at cometogethermusic.org. And from there, you can find the YouTube channel. You can find the links to our episodes on Spotify or Apple Music. We're on, whatever your podcast platform of choice is. We've got audio only and audio with video, so you can find all that stuff there. And then you can find some longer form articles about the music and other topics at on Substack at Shaka's Substack.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shaka. I appreciate your time and getting to know you, and I'll hope to meet you in person soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
You are welcome. It's my pleasure. Wow, Shaka, thank you. What a great conversation and what a great effort he has built with Come Together. The trust that music can reach somewhere that words can't. I think a lot of us need to be reminded of that. And I appreciate you being here today and tuning in. And to everyone listening, if something in this conversation stayed with you or sparked a thought or an idea, please share it and tag us at story sessions _ the podcast. That's at storysessions_the podcast. I'm Laura Lynn. This is Story Sessions, where your story matters, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks so much for listening to Story Sessions, where your story matters. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star review, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone you know. To learn more about the Story Sessions family, visit storysessions.live. That's storysessions.live. Thanks so much, and see you next week.